Namaskar, good evening viewers. It's 9 p.m. and you're watching the news on Sansad TV. I'm Rajiv Kumar Singh. In the next half an hour, we will bring you the roundup of all national and international news. We begin with the headlines. Cabinet approves 1.5% interest subvention on short-term agri loans. Also raises a limit of emergency credit line. Guarantees scheme by 50,000 crore rupees to help hospitality sector. BJP REJIGS Parliamentary Board inducts 6 new faces including Satyanarayan Jatia, B.S. Yediyurappa and Iqbal Singh, Bhupender Yadav, Fadnavis and Om Mathur in new Central Election Committee. S. Jaishankar holds talks with a Thai counterpart in Bangkok, discusses boosting ties in economic, defense, connectivity and health domains. Share markets continue upward trend. SENSEX reclaims 60,000 mark after 4 months. Nifty jumps 119 points to finish at 17,944. International oil benchmark Brent crude dips 0.13%. Very heavy rain alert in Odisha. 2 lakh people displaced by floods. Flood alert in Andhra as major rivers in spate. Rains also lash Gujarat and Rajasthan. We will now quickly look on some more important news of the day. Prime Minister Modi speaks to French President Emmanuel Macron, expresses solidarity in fighting drought and wildfire ravaging France. Government working to create jobs through technology and developing infrastructure in rural areas, says Union Minister Toma. Government debunks media reports, clarifies there is no change in railway booking rules for children. India is supplying nearly 60% of vaccines being used globally, says Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Election Commission of India sets a new November 25th deadline for publication of electoral rolls in Jammu and Kashmir. 4th phase of CUET-UG begins. UGC chairman assures students that the process will be smoother. Centre reviews lumpy skin livestock disease situation in Punjab and Haryana. Union Minister Purushottam Rupala emphasizes ring vaccination. 2 policemen guarding polio vaccination team shot dead in northwest Pakistan. Former Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison resists call to resign from Parliament, asserts that he secretly assumed 5 additional roles for the nation. Israeli and German leaders express outrage after Palestinian president accuses Israel of committing 50 Holocausts against his people. Now news in detail, beginning with the top story. The Union Cabinet has approved interest subvention of 1.5% on short-term agricultural loans of up to rupees 3 lakh for all financial institutions. The move aims at ensuring adequate credit flow in the farm sector, along with financial health and viability of the leading institutions. The 1.5% interest subvention will be provided to lending institutions, including public and private sector banks, small finance banks, regional rural banks, cooperative banks, and computerized primary agricultural credit societies. This increase in interest subvention support requires additional budgetary provisions of 34,856 crore rupees during the period of 2022-23 to 2024-25.
किसानों को पहले की तरह ही किसान क्रेडिट कार्ड पर 3 लाख रुपए का लोन मिलेगा, 7% ब्याज पर ही मिलेगा, 3% की सबवेंशन किसानों को मिलेगी जो टाइम पर पेमेंट करते हैं, और बैंकों पर इसका दुष्प्रभाव न पड़े उसके लिए 1.5% इंटरेस्ट की सहायता हम लोग अपनी तरफ से करने जा रहे हैं।
The government has raised the outlay of the emergency credit line guarantee scheme by rupees 50,000 crore to rupees 5 lakh crore for hospitality and related sectors. The proposal to raise the limit of ECLGS was made in the Union Cabinet 2022-23 in order to help hospitality sector hit by the coronavirus pandemic. Loans worth around rupees 3.67 lakh crore have already been sanctioned under ECLGS till August 5, 2022. In other key decisions taken at the meeting of the Union Cabinet today, the government approved access of the traditional knowledge digital library database to users including patent applicants and researchers. The move will encourage innovation based on India's valued heritage across diverse fields. Cabinet also approved the signing of a contract between India and France to support the International Transport Forum activities in the Indian transport sector. The contract was signed on 6th of July 2022. The contract will lead to scientific results and identification of technology options for decarbonization of transport sector in India. The BJP on Wednesday dropped Union Minister Nitin Gadkari and Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan from its parliamentary board. The party inducted 6 new faces, including B.S. Yediyurappa and Iqbal Singh Lalpura. Union Minister Sarbananda Sonowal, K. Lakshman, Sudha Sadav and Satyanarayan Jatia are the other members of the BJP's apex organizational body. Party leaders call the move an attempt to make parliamentary board more socially and regionally representative. Lalpura will be the first Sikh to have a seat in the BJP parliamentary board as a person from the minority community. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Union Ministers Amit Shah and Rajnath Singh and BJP President JP Nadda are among its members. The party also rejigged its Central Election Committee and included former Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, Union Minister Bhupendra Yadav, Om Mathur and its Women Wing Chief Vanthi Srinivasan. Former Union Minister Shahnawaz Hussain and Jewel Oram have been dropped from CEC, whose members also include all parliamentary board members. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar held productive talks with his Thai counterpart Don Pramudavinay at the 9th India-Thailand Joint Commission meeting in Bangkok today. Both leaders discussed ways to boost bilateral ties in political, economic, security, defense, connectivity and health domains. The leaders also exchanged views on the situation in Myanmar and shared perspectives on the Indo-Pacific. After the meeting, Jaishankar tweeted that the agreements signed on cooperation in health and broadcasting will take the ties forward.
Discussed in different domains how we could promote our ties. It included defense and security, where we agreed on increasing the momentum of our exchanges, including joint training and exercises. We recognized the importance of further cooperation in the field of ICT, including cyber security, and resolved to work there as well. Where bilateral trade is concerned, again you heard from my counterpart that we are today approaching a volume of $15 billion. But again, we have set some ambitious targets in the years ahead.
Jaishankar began his Thailand visit on Tuesday by meeting the Indian community. Addressing the gathering in Bangkok, the External Affairs Minister discussed the surge in energy prices across the world due to the Russia-Ukraine war. He also said that India's relationship with the ASEAN has emerged as a key cornerstone of India's foreign policy. Thailand is a partner to India not only in ASEAN but other organizations like the BIMSTEC and Mekong Ganga. Now, let us trace the monsoon in the nation. A new low-pressure area over Rajasthan triggered heavy rains in many parts of the state. In the last 24 hours, heavy rain was recorded at isolated places in Pratapgarh, Sirohi, Jhalawar, Udaipur, Dungarpur, Jaipur, Banswara, Pali and Jalore districts. A deep low-pressure system over East Rajasthan has reached the western parts of the state. It is likely to weaken gradually and move westwards in the next 12 hours. In Madhya Pradesh, many rivers continue to flow above the danger mark. In Chhatarpur, many low-lying areas were flooded after water was released from the overflowing Sujara Dam into the Dhasan River. Narmadapuram is witnessing a flood-like situation after an increase in the water level of the Narmada River. Gates of Barna, Tawa and Kolar dams were opened after the increase in water level. A flood-like situation prevails in many districts of Madhya Pradesh. Many temples have been inundated in Mandsaur. In Odisha, torrential rains have raised the water level of the Mahanadi River in many districts. Nearly 1.5 lakh people have been shifted to safer places in 237 villages. The rising Baitarni River has triggered floods in some villages of Bhadrak. Over 2 lakh people in 10 districts have been affected. In Andhra Pradesh, water levels have risen in Sir Arthur Cottage Barrage at Dhovaleswaram. Godavari in neighboring Telangana's Bhadrachalam recorded nearly 1.5 million cusecs of water, crossing the third danger mark of 54.5 feet. More flood water is likely to enter the Cotton Barrage in the next few hours. The SENSEX reclaimed the 60,000 mark as domestic stock markets continue to rise for the fourth trading day in a row. The BSE Sensex closed at 60,260.13 points, up 417.92 points or 0.7%. Nifty touched 17,944.25, up 119 points or 0.67%. Of the 50 stocks included in the Nifty, 33 ended in gains. In other Asian markets, China, Shanghai's Composite, Japan's Nikkei and Hong Kong's Hang Seng were the gainers, while South Korea's Kospi was the loser. At the same time, there was a sluggish trend in business in the major markets of Europe. The US stocks closed with gains on Tuesday. Meanwhile, international oil benchmark Brent crude fell 0.13% to $92.22 per barrel. Now let us take a look at some stories that are making news across the nation. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin met with President Draupadi Murmu and Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar in Delhi. Senior DMK leader T.R. Balu was also present in the meeting. The Delhi Fire Service has approved 7 proposals for fire protection system in building being constructed under the Central Vista project of the government. The Supreme Court has sought response from the Centre and the Election Commission on a PIL seeking to give voting rights to non-resident Indians in elections. A first-of-its-kind portal has been launched for various central and state agencies which are responsible for enforcement of anti-drug laws in the country. The National Integrated Database on Arrested Narco Offenders has been developed by NCB. The Directorate General of Civil Aviation has directed airlines to strictly implement COVID-19 protocol, including making masks mandatory inside flights. Terrorists attacked security forces with a grenade during a search operation in Shopian in Jammu and Kashmir. The grenade missed the intended target and exploded on roadside without causing any damage. During the search operation, the security forces also recovered a large number of ammunition. Around 9,062 new COVID cases have emerged in the last 24 hours. The number of patients under treatment has come down to 1,05,058. Slipping into a short break here. On the other side, armed with a landmark climate bill, the US hopes to make clean energy cheap in all aspects of American life.
What is India's perspective on global issues? How is India navigating its bilateral and multilateral relations? How do we decode foreign policy? And what is the impact India is having on the world? For an in-depth analysis of international affairs, watch Diplomatic Dispatch with me, Vikas Varu, only on Sansad TV.
Welcome back. Time now for all the big developments from the Russia-Ukraine war front. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that various reasons could be behind Russian-annexed Crimea's explosions. He also warned people in occupied territories to stay away from Russian military sites. He said that the destruction of Russia's logistics, ammunition, military and other equipment saved the lives of Ukrainians. His comments came after Russia blamed sabotage for new explosions at military base in Crimea. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres will meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Lviv. Guterres will also visit Odisha and Istanbul to see one of the ports involved in the Black Sea Grain Initiative and the Joint Coordination Center set up to implement it. Finland will slash the number of visas issued to Russians to 10% from the 1st of September. Along the Baltic states, Finland has also proposed that the European Union should discontinue an agreement with Russia that makes it easier for Russians to travel in the bloc. Ukraine's State Emergency Service released a video showing the aftermath of a Russian missile strike 60 kilometers south of Odessa in the coastal town of Zatoka. The strike left 4 people wounded, caused a fire and severe damages in one of the town's resorts. The railway bridge in Zatoka is a key connection between Odessa region's south to the rest of Ukraine and has been targeted during the war several times. Time now for some other global updates. President Joe Biden signed a landmark climate change and healthcare bill into law on Tuesday, delivering what he called the final piece of his domestic agenda, less than 3 months before the midterm elections.
In the face of escalating natural disasters and sustained global warming, the US is hoping to make clean energy cheap in all aspects of life. On Tuesday, President Joe Biden signed the far-reaching climate change and healthcare bill into law. The legislation includes the most substantial federal investment in history to fight climate change, some $375 billion over the decade. It would cap prescription drug costs at $2,000 out of pocket annually for Medicare recipients. It would also help an estimated 13 million Americans pay for healthcare insurance by extending subsidies provided during the coronavirus pandemic. The action comes 34 years after a top scientist grabbed headlines warning Congress about the dangers of global warming. In these 34 years, the US has seen 308 weather disasters that have each cost the nation at least $1 billion. The climate incentives in the Inflation Reduction Act are expected to spur investors to accelerate the expansion of clean energy like wind and solar power, speeding the transition away from the oil, coal and gas that largely cause climate change. The US has put the most heat-trapping gases into the air, burning more inexpensive dirty fuels than any other country. Together, these could help shrink US carbon emissions by about 2/5 by 2030 and should cut emissions from electricity by as much as 80%. the US action could spur other nations to do more, and that, in turn, is hoped could lower prices for renewable energy globally, experts said. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
A day after Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese accused his predecessor of trashing democracy and governing by deception, former country Premier Scott Morrison defended his actions. He said his secret accumulation of ministerial roles began during COVID-19 that made it essential for him to wield emergency powers that could not be checked by Parliament.
Scott Morrison on Wednesday defended his decision to secretly appoint himself to 5 ministerial roles when he was Australia's Prime Minister, saying it was a necessary step during the depths of the coronavirus crisis. Current Prime Minister Anthony Albanese on Tuesday accused Morrison of trashing democracy and governing by deception. Albanese is seeking an opinion from the Solicitor General on the legality of some of Morrison's moves. Many of Morrison's former colleagues were blindsided by the revelations of the appointments that have come out over recent days. Some have called for him to resign from Parliament, where he is now an opposition lawmaker after losing the general election to Albanese earlier this year. But Morrison said that while he apologized for causing offence to his colleagues, he stood by his actions.
Good afternoon, everyone. In that context, with an understanding of the expectation of public responsibility singularly directed at the Prime Minister, I believed it was necessary to have authority to have what were effectively emergency powers to exercise in extreme situations that would be unforeseen, that would enable me to act in the national interest. And that is what I did in a crisis.
Morrison said there was an exception during the COVID-19 crisis, that as Prime Minister he was responsible pretty much for every single thing that was going on. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Now let us take a look at some more stories from around the globe. Turkey and Israel have decided to restore full diplomatic ties. Both countries said they will reappoint respective ambassadors, marking another milestone after months of steady improvement in relations. Both countries had expelled ambassadors in 2018 over the killing of 60 Palestinians by Israeli forces during protests on the Gaza border against the opening of a US embassy in Jerusalem. A prominent Vatican cardinal and 88 clergy members are facing allegations of sexual assault in a class action lawsuit against the QUEBEC Catholic Diocese. The civil lawsuit represents over 100 victims who were allegedly sexually assaulted, mostly as minors, by priests and other staff working for the diocese since 1940s to 1960s. The cardinal, seen as a potential successor to Pope Francis, is not facing any criminal accusations, but his name appears in the legal proceedings. Southern Thailand was shocked by explosions on Wednesday. Explosions and a fire ripped through at least 17 locations, injuring 7 people in what appeared to be multiple coordinated attacks. The military said the bombings and arson happened after midnight and targeted convenience stores and a gas station across 3 provinces. So far, no one has claimed responsibility for the attacks. China Manned Space Agency released video footage showing the interior of the airlock cabin of the VACCINATORS lab module. The module will be used by the crew in the space station complex for extravehicular activities. The airlock cabin can be used for the storage and inspection of extravehicular space suits, as well as astronauts training. The construction of the Tiangong space station is expected to be completed by the end of this year. Heat waves persisted in southern China, with temperatures exceeding 40 degrees Celsius in multiple provinces. A drought caused by heat wave has delivered a major blow and damaged the crops. China's heat waves has lasted for the last 64 days, making it the longest spell full recorded began in 1961, according to the data from China's National Climate Center. Over 262 weather stations have recorded temperatures over 40 degrees. Time now for all the sporting action. Supreme Court nudges Centre to proactively facilitate in lifting suspension of All India Football Federation by FIFA. ICC announces future tours program cycle between May 2023 to April 2027. The Indian men's cricket team is to play 38 tests, 39 ODIs and 61 T20Is during the period. India and Australia to play 2 5-test match series in 2023-27 FTP cycle. Earlier, India used to play Australia in a 4-match test series. Serena Williams bowed out of Cincinnati Masters at the first hurdle, losing in straight sets 6-4, 6-love to US Open champion Emma Raducanu. In a first-round defeat, 4-time Grand Slam winner Naomi Osaka lost 6-4, 7-5 to Zhang Shui at the Cincinnati Masters. Haruyuki Takahashi, a Tokyo Olympic board member, was arrested today on suspicion of taking bribes. Takahashi allegedly received $380,000. That brings us to the end of the bulletin. For more updates, keep watching Sansad TV. Good night. Namaskar.